Yay, excellent. Right, we are ready to begin. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the live stream of Get Your Act Together project with Clothcat. Okay, here we go. Here's the information. So if you're used to tune in, we've been running this course for the last 5 weeks. This is the week 6 now. It's just a few more to go. And although it's bank holiday, we are still working. Well, I'm still working. So there you go. Yeah, so and I'm delivering the Ableton live course, and my name is Dan Delisandri. So welcome. Okay, that's all good. Cool, brilliant. Okay, so thank you very much if you tuned in last week to watch the video, watch my live stream, and thank you for watching the top tip I posted up during this week, which was all around kind of side chaining, using side chain effects on your basses and your drums, things like that. So yeah, please rewatch if you haven't already watched it. Today we will be looking at synthesis. So I'm going to give you a basic overview of synthesis in Ableton using analog. But before I do that, I have a disclaimer to read out to you. So this is the YouTube disclaimer. So if you're under 18, please tell your parents that you are doing a session. Feel free to ask questions and make comments, but stay safe online by using just your first name. Don't give out your contact details, and I hope you enjoy today's lesson. Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, let's have a open up the software in Ableton. And today, like I said, yeah, we are going to be looking at synthesis. And you ask, what is synthesis? You might have heard the word before. Pretty sure that you've heard the word synthesizer, maybe. A lot of things that we get that kind of make sounds, whether it's like kind of keyboards or drum machines, or kind of within software, within Ableton and other software. Synthesizers are a big part of it. Even like kids' toys, when you think about how do kids' toys make all those annoying noises. Same with like birthday cards. Now when you open up a birthday card and it sings happy birthday to you, they are basically your synthesized sounds. So kind of within the birthday card, there's like a mini synthesizer, or within the kids' toys there's also like synthesizer, and it's basically making noises, making annoying noises. But we're going to learn how to make interesting noises, so kind of the noises that you would hear within music, in particular dance music. When you hear like basses, bass sounds, kind of lower end sounds, subs, sub bass, kind of synths, kind of mid-range synths, high end kind of strings, high frequency strings, all of those kind of sounds we use when we are producing music. So when I was showing you in one of my earlier lessons, using some of the sounds that you kind of get within Ableton, somebody would have produced those sounds within these synthesizers here in Ableton. A lot of them are within analog. So if you kind of click open, if you look at analog, all of these kind of sounds here be made using the analog synth. And yeah, it's a really, really important part, a huge part of music making, in particular electronic music making, is synthesis. And the cool thing about it, there's kind of two ways to kind of look at it. The fact that you can make your own sounds from scratch, your own unique sounds that maybe no one else has ever made before or has ever heard before, or using like the presets within the analog and the other synths, as well as if you were to come across like an analog synthesizer like a Moog or others as well. You might come across other synths, other plugins. For example, there's another one called Serum, which you have to buy. There's another one called Massive. And if you can kind of get your head around the basics of synthesis, then you can kind of alter the sounds to kind of what you want to achieve within your track. So if you want like a really kind of low subby bass, you know how to make it. Or if you want your kind of sound to kind of move a little bit more, and you're able to kind of understand how to work the LFOs within a synth, then yeah, it's kind of good to have that understanding. So kind of what synthesis is in general, in a whole. So yeah, in musical terms, it's kind of sound synthesis is where you kind of use hardware or software to generate sounds from scratch. When you think about it in more general terms, when you synthesize, it's kind of you putting things together. So you might synthesize, I don't know, some plastics or something like that, and yeah, and then you create something else from there. But within musical terms, yeah, synthesis is where you're making sounds, where you're basically putting sounds together to make other sounds, make more interesting sounds. The most kind of common form of synthesis that I use is kind of subtractive synthesis. So there's all these different types. One of the most commonly used one is subtractive synthesis. You also get like additive synthesis and other forms as well. But yeah, we're going to be looking at using subtractive synthesis. And yeah, there's some brilliant information out there teaching you all about the other types of synthesis. But today we're looking at subtractive. And it's so with subtractive synthesis, you're kind of using an oscillator or two oscillators to generate a sound using different waveforms. So the main waveforms you get like a sine waveform, square waveform, triangular, sawtooth, and then like a noise one as well. And each of them are kind of used for making different sounds. So for example, like a sawtooth is kind of a bit more of an aggressive sound. Square tends to have lots of kind of harmonics in there, so it's good for kind of filtering, using the kind of filters on there. Triangular is much softer, which is quite nice for kind of bass sounds. Sine is much smoother, which I quite like to use for kind of lower bass, like sub bass sounds as well. And noise, yeah, basically makes noise, so you can kind of add that on top of your sounds, and it's kind of like maybe like a white noise, something like that, and you can add alongside other waveforms, and it can generate pretty cool sounds. So yeah, and the waveform is what basically gives that oscillator its characteristic. And the idea is that you're kind of removing harmonies using filters, and use the envelope. So I'm going to be covering all of this, and then you can kind of alter the feel of a sound using LFO, like a lower frequency oscillator. So yeah, I'll be covering all that today within the lesson. So to kind of begin with, within Ableton, we're just using a MIDI track today. So you kind of get your analog. Like I said, you can use the presets there, but we're going to kind of start from scratch. So if I go over drag and drop and at the bottom. So yeah, so you'll see all these kind of different sections on the analog synth here. So to begin with, I'll just kind of point out what each section is. So this is oscillator 1. You can kind of see, and you can turn it on and off. This is the filter section. So to kind of alter the settings, you kind of need to click on that section, and it kind of changes underneath. So that's your oscillator section. We've then got the filter section, where you can select different filters and filter the frequencies. We've then got the amp section, really important part, where you can alter the envelope. Don't worry, I'm going to come on to what all this means. We've then got the LFO, lower frequency oscillator section, and then we've got the kind of overall kind of volume section, and this is where you can kind of route the signal, kind of set it up slightly differently on your kind of synth that you're making, on the sound that you're making. And you'll notice it's kind of duplicated at the bottom as well. So this is oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and then you can basically turn on and off the filter, or you can turn on the oscillator on and off. So we're just going to begin with kind of one oscillator at the moment. So yeah, if you turn it on, we'll turn the filter off for now. You need to have the amp on. So if I just press some keys. So this is the triangle shape waveform, triangular waveform. So here we've got a sine wave, which is nice and it's kind of nice and smooth sounding. Triangle, and then we've got square, and then we've got noise, which just sounds like kind of white noise. It reminds me of, well, I don't know if you can, if any of you can remember, maybe you can, older televisions when you used to kind of, before digital TVs, before we kind of had that technology, you used to have to kind of tune in your television via aerial, and if it wasn't tuned right, or if there was no signal, you kind of get that kind of staticky kind of sounding noise, which combined with other waveforms can make really cool sounds. So yeah, we're going to begin with looking at the sine wave. You might have come across this before. Maybe at school you've kind of done some stuff in science around physics and what sound is, and what generates sounds, things like that. But yeah, a waveform, a sine waveform is kind of the purest, kind of simplest kind of waveform that you can get. So that's on its own, it sounds quite nice. So on this area here, we can change the octave. So if you click on it, you can kind of drag it up or down an octave. So an octave is 12 semitones. So here, this is on middle C. So yeah, we can alter that there. And then this here, F1 stroke F2, this is basically telling the signal where to go. So at the moment, F1 is filter 1. So we're telling this sine wave here to go into filter 1, which we haven't activated yet. So if you activate it, see everything kind of turns on there, and then you can kind of turn the filter pot up and down here. So obviously the higher the frequency, the kind of brighter it becomes. And at the moment this is a low pass 24 dB filter that we're using here. You can put it on 12. And then the resolution, so resonance, you can't really hear it at the moment, but tends to work better on some of the other waveforms as well. And then the amp, actually all of this is going to filter 2, so let's turn, we don't want any of that going to filter 2. And then it goes over to the amp section. So the amp, if I turn it off, you can't hear it. So think of like a guitar needs an amplifier in the same way a synthesizer needs an amplifier to kind of boost the signal, or to kind of, so you can actually hear it. And this is obviously, so you can make it louder, make it quieter, just kind of stick around that level there. So there you go. So that's kind of in its basic terms. Oh, then there's the kind of main section here, the overall volume, where you can kind of put some vibrato on here, on the sound. So you turn it up. Which is quite nice. Reminds me of like an old Hammond organ, where you can kind of put vibrato on your sounds as well. So yeah. So your oscillator is generating a sound. You can change the waveform. And then you can use the filter. You see the filter worked much better. And then the noise as well. That's quite good for making kind of wind noises, which I quite like. Okay, so let's go have a look at the amp section. So we'll come back to the filter section, but yeah, we'll have a little look at the amplifier section. And let's put that back on a sine wave, so you can hear it a little bit clearer. Yeah, click on the amp section, and then this is your envelope. So when we're talking about an envelope, we're not talking about something you put in a post box or something you get through your letterbox. What an envelope is, it changes the characteristics of the sound would change depending on how the envelope is set up. So when you kind of press a note on your keyboard, on your piano, on your launch pad, anything like that, it will change the kind of characteristics of that sound. And there are kind of four main parts of your envelope, and you should come across this quite a lot. The more you kind of start producing, the more kind of you get involved in synthesizers and things. The four main parts are the attack, the decay, sustain, and release. So you'll see ADSR. If you kind of see that anywhere, it's referring to the envelope, the amp envelope. Over here, we've got a filter envelope as well, and this will obviously alter how quickly, slowly, how long the filter kind of reacts to the oscillator. But yeah, we're going to begin with the amp envelope. So at the moment, if I press down my key, you hear the sound straight away. If I just quickly explain what each part means. So the attack, which is this first one here, you can see that changing there. The attack was changing there. So the attack is the time it takes from when you hit the key to when the sound kind of hits its peak. So the kind of the peak of the sound. The following one here is the decay. So this is basically the rundown from the attack to the sustain. So this here is your kind of decay, and then the sustain is this part here. So this is how long it takes for the note to be sustained until you let go of the key. And then the release is the time it takes from the sustain level to reach 0, and then you can't hear it anymore, basically. So you might want to have a sound that when you let go, you don't hear it anymore, or you might want a sound that kind of carries on a little bit and fades down, and that's where you would you'd use the release on there. It all makes sense when I kind of show you each bit by bit. So on middle C here, so if I turn the attack all the way up, and see how long it's taken to get to the kind of peak. When I let go, and there's a bit of a release on there as well. So if I turn that off, you hear it stop straight away, didn't it? Whereas if I turn it on, or make it longer, and now I've let go, and it's last and last and last and last and last and last. So yeah, depending on the types of sounds that you're making, you might want to have a really, really long release, something like strings, which is quite nice to have a long release on. And the same with the attack, you might want a kind of a slow attack. If it was something like a bass sound, you might want to have a really kind of quick attack and a quick release as well. So if we turn that up now, let's have a bit of attack. So you notice there, it kind of goes up and then it dips a bit, stays there, and then it comes back down again. You kind of, so if here it goes all the way up, and you see it's come down a little bit there, and until I let go, and then it kind of stops. There you go. So yeah, you can alter the kind of characteristic of the sound using the envelope, and you can get some pretty interesting sounds from using that. So next, let's try it with a different waveform. Because we've got the filter set quite high up there. So this time I'm going to turn up the attack on the filter and see what happens. So you see it's kind of taken a bit of time to kind of get to the top of the frequency. Let's do it a bit quicker than that. When it's all the way up, you can't really hear that much difference. But if I turn it down a bit, sounds a bit kind of vocally, sounds a bit like a voice, doesn't it? Let's try it with the different filter types. So let's try it with a bandpass. A notch. Hasn't really made that much difference, but if I change the frequency, hasn't made that much difference. High pass. This is quite interesting. When I let go, you can kind of hear it because it's got a long sustain, sorry, long release. And then as soon as I let go, that's when you kind of hear the sound hitting a little bit more. And then we've got this kind of formant one here, which makes a really, really interesting sound. Let's change it so it's a bit longer. It's taken a lot longer for the sound to kind of hit the top. Sorry about that. Just 1 second. There we go. So now we can hear it's a little bit loud there. So yeah, that's how you can kind of use these different filters here to make some really interesting sounds. But yeah, let's just go back to using the low pass. Okay, so I'm going to take the amp, change this back to normal. So that's kind of using the amp section and the filter section. And the same with a lot of things when it comes to kind of music making. It's kind of using your ears and using your ears to kind of tune things, change things to what you like the sound of. So if I'm kind of messing around with the filters or the oscillators, the pitch and that, if I kind of come across something that I like and it kind of fits in with what I'm making, then great. So you don't have to have loads and loads of knowledge. It's just kind of understanding the basics so that you can alter things to what you want them to do. Let's take that off. I think, yeah, go back over to here we go, that's why it's doing that. Let's turn that off. There we go, so as soon as I let go, it stops, you can't hear the sound anymore. And if we go over to the next section here, which is the LFO. I really like using LFOs in the music that I make, because I make a lot of kind of electronic dance music. You kind of want using LFOs, it's great. It really kind of suits kind of making basses or making kind of weird effect sounds, build up sounds, and I'll show you how you can make some of those. So the LFO, lower frequency oscillator, it basically is another oscillator which oscillates the signal and creates a kind of a pulsing kind of effect sound. So other examples, you've probably all heard like a police siren, how it kind of goes wow, 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 wow. That's basically an oscillator. You might have come across them in, for example, an old Hammond organ, where there's like a Leslie kind of wheel spinning round and round, oscillating the sound, and you can change the speed. You can have it the LFO affecting the filter or the kind of pitch, and you can achieve some pretty pretty weird and wacky sounds. Yeah, I'll show you how you can do that. So at the moment, LFO1, so I've activated there. You see that's come on there. You can either have it set to hertz or in time. So at the moment, that's at quarters, or you can kind of have it oscillating a frequency instead. So yeah, at the moment that's set to quarters. So at the moment, it's not doing anything. Let me just make this. So to start the LFO actually affecting things, you kind of need to click on what you want the LFO to affect. So at the moment, we can have it affecting the filter here. And we've got the LFO1 down here. So if I start turning this up, so that's basically affecting the frequency. So if I turn the frequency up, you can't hear it affecting it. If I turn it all the way down, and then if we change the rate, let's have it let's go down. Let's go up. Quarters, eighths, 16ths, 30 seconds. So yeah, like I said, you can make some pretty cool sounds just from kind of affecting there, but let's keep it down at, keep it simple, let's keep it on quarters. So if I do it in the hertz, so this is quite good for if you're making a kind of a build-up sound just kind of before you drop, and then you automate the rate here, the hertz. That's quite cool to do. But let's just use it in quarters for now, just to keep it simple. And we can change the oscillators, so it's a triangle, rectangular, or noise as well. So let's do it with a triangle. So that's kind of a slow incline and then a short decline. Let's try it the other way. And that's the opposite, basically. So this is kind of like a sawtooth. So you can kind of hear the difference there. But if you put it back to 0, and then let's try it with a rectangular, or anything. And then with noise. Let's try the other one. Yeah, so you can make some pretty interesting noises with using those LFOs. But for this, let's just stick to using the sine. That's probably the most common one that we've come across. There we go. And yeah, so at the moment this is just affecting the frequency here, so it's kind of frequency modulation. We can also have it affecting resonance as well. What happens if it just does the resonance? Let's have a little listen to that. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, have a little mess around with setting the LFO1 on, having the rate on about quarters, and then changing, going to your frequency section, clicking on there, and then you can change. I've got the frequency right down. So that's affecting that there. So if we go over to the amp as well, actually let's have a little look at the oscillator first. So here we can modulate the pitch using the LFO. So at the moment it said LFO 1, that's set to the quarters there, so if you turn that up, which is quite nice. Put that back up to 100. This is quite nice if you do like a low. What does that sound like with the sine? The square. So you can kind of have that set down to 4. That's pretty cool. So yeah, you can make some really cool and interesting sounds using the LFO. And I just like using it for, if I put it back to quarters, in my bass sounds, just to kind of, I actually quite like using it on thirds as well, so or triplets. So let's do it on quarter. Where's the quarter triplets? So it's a bit kind of off. There we go. So when you come to kind of make your bass sounds, you can kind of have it a little bit more kind of movement, a little bit more of a groove to it, so it's not as kind of straight. Let's keep it as quarters for now. So we'll go back to the pitch. Let's put that back to 0. And then we'll put that back to 0 as well. It's quite handy if you just click on the numbers, press the press 0, and then yeah, type it in, and then it will change that for you. So now we're kind of back to our kind of basic kind of waveform there. I really like using analog, yeah, for some with a sine wave for my kind of basses. So when you write music, particularly dance music, with your bass, it's always kind of good to kind of fill out those really bottom end lower frequencies. So you've got your kick drum, which will be kind of taking over a lot of the bottom end within your track, but then you've also got your kind of bass, sub bass sounds, and whatever the kind of the bass line is doing, or at least the tonic notes, kind of the first note of the chord of the key that you're working in, you kind of want the sub bass doing that. And partly because when you come to play your tracks on a big sound system, you want to basically be hearing those subs. Everyone wants to feel bass when they go to kind of clubs or at festivals or listening to music. Everyone likes bass because it kind of, you feel the bass inside your tummy. So making kind of sub bass sounds to kind of complement your music is really important. So yeah, a simple way is just to kind of get like a sine wave in analog, pitch it down, and then kind of copy the MIDI across. You might have to pitch that down as well, but yeah, you can kind of have your bass line, your sub bass line, using this kind of a simple waveform here, a kind of simple. But if we change it to so that's kind of quite cool for making bass lines as well. So if we kind of get a sine, and now let's turn on oscillator 2. So now we've got, this time now we've got 2 waveforms making noises. Oops, have my key down there. So you can kind of, it's nice to have kind of one kind of maybe the sine wave, have that turn it down a little bit. And then let's pitch this down an octave. So you kind of, now the bass has got like a nice subby kind of lower frequency sine wave, which on a big sound system you'd feel a lot more. And then we've got kind of more a mid-range. And then we can put the filter on here. So at the moment, oscillator 2 is going to, it says here filter 1. They're both going to filter 1. So let's turn that down, drag it all the way down, left click, drag down to the bottom. So at the moment, this oscillator 2 is going to this filter now, but we can't hear it. So if I just go over to this section here, the amplifier, okay, yeah, that was why. Because I'd switched the filter here to filter 2, this isn't being amplified. Put that back up there. There we go. So now you can hear it much, much clearer. And then we can have the LFO just affecting this section here. So LFO2, so if you go over to here, LFO2, and that's the filter here. So let's have a little listen to what that sounds like now. Also at quarters. Let's turn. So you can kind of hear that the it's been affected there. So if I turn the frequency down. So was this being affected? I think I'll turn that off. Yeah. So let's have them both doing that now. Okay. So let's try it now. Let's turn that off of there. Zero it. And go to the oscillator, and this time let's change the LFO2 so it's altering the pitch. Or let's change that to a formant as well. That sounds a bit bizarre. Yeah, that sounds a bit bizarre. Let's change the shape of this as well. Let's change that back to a normal filter. That's a nice kind of dirty bass sound. Okay. So yeah, these are the main sections of kind of synthesizer. So yeah, great if you can have a go with analog, see what sounds you can make. Really handy little tip as well. If you click on this disc save button here, you can then in your analog you can change the name of this. So Dan synth, and then at a later date you can kind of come back to it and you can use it again, or you can add to it, you can change it around. But yeah, these are kind of authentic original sounds that we've made here, so I quite like the sound of that. And then yeah, those are the main sections really. So like I said, it's quite handy to have a little mess around with the presets. So I'll just quickly go to instruments here. Because I've saved that now, I can always load it back up again if I wanted to. So let's get a bass sound, drone bass. There we go. Whoever had made these kind of preset here, had kind of put it into this section here. So these pots here are just altering certain parts of, yeah, because these are kind of linked to these pots here. Yeah, but filter 2 is doing a lot more here. And you can kind of change it so that some of the oscillators are going to different filters, so they're not all going to one or the other. You can kind of have it 50-50, or you can kind of split it. So on this sound here, we can alter. Let's change get the LFO going. LFO 1. Go over to here. Let's do it on the amp. Sorry, on the filter. Do the same over here. So yeah, just having a little understanding, and you can expand the analog here so you can kind of see what it is. Or you might just want to mess around with the kind of the settings that are on here, which is quite good. So, okay, so I think that's pretty much everything that I've got to show you today about using analog to create some sounds. The video I'm going to be posting up during this week, I'm going to be showing you how you can use analog to create your own kick drum. So it's kind of really, really important part of making music is your kick drum. And yeah, I'm going to show you how really, really quickly you can kind of make your own kick drum from scratch. I think that'd be pretty cool if you could learn how to do that. So yeah, I think that's everything I've got to show you today about using analog to create your own sounds and patches within Ableton Live. Just see if we've got any questions from anyone. No questions yet. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the lesson today. Next week, what I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to be showing you how you can DJ using Ableton Live. I'm sure you've all seen DJs, heard of DJs, watched them before, heard them before. So I'm going to show you how you can use Ableton Live for creating DJ mixes or kind of short mashups, if that's what you're into. So yeah, no turntables. We're going to be doing it all within the software here, kind of using the audio channels on there. So yeah, please tune in at 4 o'clock next week, where I'll be teaching you that. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you'll get notifications for all the other activities that are happening during the week. Okay, thank you for watching.